Well, good morning, my friends. Hope you all are doing well today. Carpo here with my however many minutes of free thinking, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I just had some thoughts this morning I wanted to share. Sometimes I come out and sit in front of the camera, I'm like, I'm just going to mumble at the camera and talk about random shit, so there's no point, and I give up on it. But the other day I took a bunch of notes late at night, at the same time as I'm watching a show or some newscast or whatever it might be. I'm actually more focused on writing notes. And pretty much every time I watch a video or get into a subject or a particular topic, I take a lot of notes. And I have hundreds of pages of just notes that I can go back through. And for the most part, it's just chaos. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. My point being that if I make a list of notes and I cover the topic within the day, then I can usually remember. But a few days ago I made this list of not just conspiracy theories. I hate using that term, I really do, because it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth. I just should say rather world issues that people are concerned about, and a list of all the topics that people are highly focused on that nobody can prove or do anything about. Let's just take, for example, a new world order, okay? Illuminati or something like that. Perhaps, perhaps not, but can you change it from your perspective? No, of course not. And the point of it was that so many people are focused on problems they can't solve rather than ones we can. So I also came up with a list of things we can actually do some things about. Like, we can stand up against poor infrastructure and utilities and demand that our tax dollars be used properly. Can we succeed? Maybe, but it depends on how many people are together on the same page, you see. Predatory lending, things like that. Scams, scammers out there that need to be called out for their crappy products. Snake oil salesmen from both sides, whether it be natural medicine or pharmaceuticals. There are good and bad on both sides. And it's important to remain balanced. And this is my discovery, my own personal, I cannot imprint this enough, that how important it is to every time you find yourself becoming extreme on something, bring yourself back to center and try to understand the other side. Because the only way we become extremely into one side is when we feel strongly against the other side, you see? So, a couple other issues we can do things about, like, we can stand up against overtaxation or poor use of them, but we choose not to. We have right-of-way and eminent domain, which many of you are well aware of. There are people who have lived in their houses for generations, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're building a freeway through here. Now, this hasn't happened as much in recent years, decades, because most of the major freeways are built. But you look back in time and look at how many Americans lost their land, lost their properties due to walls, fences, bridges, roads, whatever it might be. You don't have as much freedom as you might like to think that you have in this country. In other words, you have freedom unless somebody else wants what you have, okay? And this makes me want to escape. Now, my wife and I have been talking about this for years. I'm looking for a piece of land. It's just been a dream of mine forever, We have our little short school bus that we got fixed up. I want to park it on the land and try to build a cabin over time. And I'm looking for a place in the Pacific Northwest, or somewhere relatively within, say, a handful of hours drive, from Portland area. But that brings me to, I guess, the point of this, which is self-sufficiency, and how important it is that we learn how to do as much as we can for ourselves. We have become so reliant on the system, which is probably why I'm such a nihilist about it. I do understand that it's brought us many great discoveries, longer lives and medicines, but what good is a longer life if the life you're living sucks? And I'm not saying my life sucks, I'm not saying your life sucks. I'm just saying for a lot of people, life can really suck because the system leaves them out. And it's easy for us to say, well, I'm doing fine. I have my backyard here, okay? I'm on lockdown. I'm not complaining because it wouldn't do me any good to complain. I'm not going to stand out and protest when I have my own space. But if I lived in an apartment in a city, it might be a different story. If I was trapped in a small apartment with my kids, we have 5 people that live in my house. And, to be able to get along at times like this is hard for a lot of people when they're at home. And I just wanted to make a note of something. Up until, just the last century, everyone lived at home together all the time. And because of that, we had a lot of stricter rules and regulations in the families because the kids had to help out, things like that, in farms. But I'm looking to buy land where I can actually farm my own food as best I can. I've been trying to learn the land. I've learned carpentry. I know how to build a house. I know how to garden. I wouldn't say I know how to farm quite yet, but it's just a macro version. Sorry about the lawnmower. I sometimes think I might get away with just a quiet moment, but it doesn't usually work. So I just want to get through this as quick as possible, but make the points I want to make because I know my videos get long. What we can do for ourselves. First off, I heard a quote, somebody say something the other day that stuck with me. I've heard it before, but he said, are you just letting life push you along, or are you deciding what you want to do with your life? Now, there have been times when I've decided what I wanted to do. I set my sights on becoming a carpenter. I went out and I took, I got all the lessons, paid for the course, took the tests, passed the tests, got my license, got bonded, got insured, worked in carpentry for a while. I was like, this is great, I've done it. Something I've earned. I didn't just fall into a job, I actually took it. Then my back gave out a few years back, and about 5 years ago, my sciatica got so bad I couldn't even continue with it. But anyhow, that was one of the times in my life where I've actually taken initiative, or when I started my herb business, or when I started this or that. But what I really want out of life is just a peaceful existence in a quiet place with family, and that is very difficult because it's not about just living in the woods and everything's easy and dandy. You've got to work harder, and I know that. But here's the thing. Would you rather work for 10, 12 hours a day on your farm, or work 8 hours a day at a job that you fucking hate? And it seems so out of reach to get the things we want. Believe me, I know. I'm 44, and I sit back and I think, I could have done this a long time ago. Are you making the decisions for yourself to do what you really want? Because if you don't, then you're going to become miserable. You're going to start pointing the fingers at other people, and it's going to be everybody else's fault. And a lot of people fall into that. They become miserable because they're not happy and they don't realize it. And so I'm trying to find a way to do both. To work the land, to harvest my own trees, maybe for the lumber, maybe do a small mining for quartz or crystals. I don't know, whatever's on the property. I'm looking for maybe 10 acres, 20 acres for a cheap. When you talk about an acre, it could be $500, it could be $100, or it could be $10,000, or $10 million. It depends on what you're getting. But I want a place that's isolated with trees, and that's not everybody's dream. But I feel like we've lost so much touch with nature. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's true. So what are the real important things we can do for ourselves? I'm going to list them off. First off, protect our family and friends. That should come foremost and be the most obvious. Do whatever we can to protect our own. Whether that means self-defense physically, or self-defense mentally, or preparing ahead of time. In other words, let's say you could have a full arsenal of home protection and live in a place where you are constantly in danger. Why not move to a place where it's less dangerous, where at least, this is just life right now. You don't notice the noise until you try to make a video, so my apologies. Say, protect your family and friends. Become self-sufficient, is the second one. As much as possible. We always depend on each other. So the idea that one man is an island is ridiculous. But everyone can work together you have the chickens, I have the, carrots, whatever it might be. But become as self-sufficient as possible. People don't realize, if you have a backyard with a nice lawn, why? Why not dig up half of it and make a garden, I've got a pretty large garden over here, but I'd really like to, I'm going to put plants everywhere this year, as much as possible. Okay, the next one is to learn to build, sew. Yeah, learn to build simple houses. Learn to sew clothing. Learn to repair things instead of just throwing them away. These little things can save us a lot of time and money. And learn to cook. That's a major key one. We buy too much crap in this world, fast food and whatnot. So besides learning to grow your own food, learn to entertain yourself. This is a big one, and this is one I really wanted to point out. With what's going on right now in the world, with this virus, if you really look closely at what's being hit the hardest, It's extracurricular activities. And what I mean by that is, and my wife is a server, and that's a lot of our income. So yeah, we understand, we've lost it. But being in the restaurant industry, for example, it's not an imperative or a necessity for society, right? Although we love to have our restaurants. Or let's say having a salon, or having let's just, for the sake of argument, call them non-essential businesses. As long as you have food, water, and shelter, you're okay, right? If you break it down to the bare bones. But beyond the restaurants, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't go out and entertain ourselves. We love to do that. I'm saying that the ones that are hardest hits are the huge tourism industries. And we've become way too interdependent on international visitors and travelers, and forgot what's really important, which is to be as self-sufficient as possible. Meaning, be able to make your money and your foods. Not just this, but we import foods. Some locations have nothing growing, no food whatsoever. And if they were shut out from the rest of the world, they'd have no access to food. And that's a scary proposition for a lot of people. So, I was thinking about how we all take risks in life. A lot of people say, well, we might get sick. Oh, well, that's what happens. And I say, that's true, except for we have insurance for a reason. Insurance for our cars, insurance for our health, for the purpose of just in case, right? And in a case like this, we don't have the choice to take a risk or not take a risk. It's an invisible enemy, right? It makes it very interesting that this something so small can take us down a notch. But the question, I guess, is this. What other things can we do for ourselves? I guess I'm kind of losing. I want to stick to the subject, but I'm so distracted by lawnmowers and sirens. That's why I want land. I just want to get the fuck out of here. Can't stand it. I guess the question is, what will we sacrifice for others in our own communities? And if people aren't willing to sacrifice a little bit for their neighbors and friends, then I start wondering, what exactly is a community? If the community doesn't take care of each other, then what is a nation? What is a society? So if I don't feel like I can depend on my neighbors or strangers for help, then what's the point in being part of it, if you know what I mean? Now, you can't escape it. Given I'm going to move out to a cabin and I'll live out there, and so be it, right? If that happens. But it's not like I'm going to be able to escape from every societal thing. I'm still going to have to come back to town for foods, and I'm still going to have to work the land. I'm still going to have to deal with land use and taxes and things like that. It's just the reality we live in. But I don't know. I'm tired of the blame game that we have in society, where everybody's just pointing the fingers at one another. It's okay to point the finger at idiots or people who make or bad decisions that are made, but there's just so much division out there. I guess I don't foresee a very pleasant future coming out of all of this. Hopefully we learn to appreciate nature a little bit more during this time. We have cleaner water and air than we've had in decades because people aren't driving. Doesn't mean a thing. Everybody's just going to go right back to doing what they were doing. And nobody's going to, some people will maybe change their perspective on things, but others will just say, screw it. I'm just going to jump back in my Hummer and fuck it. It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. It's fine. That's your freedom. Your freedom. You're right. But that's what I mean about community. Certain things we can agree on, and we don't. So we don't just need cooperation in our communities and our nation. We need international cooperation. If we are going to continue along this path as a society, we need to make things like internet a right for everyone and free. It should be free, access to it. We also should make banking a right. In other words, it should have nothing to do with credit or other issues. The banking industry just loves to suck people in, overdraw them, and have the thousands of dollars in back fees, and it's just completely ridiculous. The banking is something you're forced to do, and I hate banks, I really do. I hate the central bank, I hate the Fed and the way that we print fiat money, and it raises the inflation rate. So, another aspect, an important one, is we need to rethink dense cities. what we're finding with this virus is that it's hitting the densest cities the worst because obviously their people are too packed in. This is a well-known phenomenon, and all through history, any animals that became too consolidated in one area. I'll tell you the story about the acacia eating antelope one time. It's a pretty fascinating story, but dense cities and urban density is causing us some problems, and we might have to rethink how we do things in the future, but we probably won't. There's a term called anthropocentrism, which is basically what we do. We put humans at the center of everything. We want to think that we're the center of the universe, that we're all that matters, and it's not the way things are. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully we survive through all this, but there's a major collapse in oil only because it cost more to pump it than it's worth, and everything's being turned on its head. Manufacturing is being backed up in several countries. We've just started out on this path. Even when critical manufacturing returns, we need demand for it, and some countries have not even begun their hardcore. Most of us haven't even begun. This virus is brand new still. We are dumping trillions of dollars into a failing, stagnant economy. And money means nothing. Of course, it's just printed, but it's something we agree on, so that gives it value. Regardless of what you think about gold, silver, or paper money, promissory notes, or fiat money, the one thing to remember is, back to the beginning of what I said, is self-sufficiency. Forget the dollar numbers on things. Oh, I need this much to buy this food or buy this. If you can grow as much food as possible, and you can find land where you can build your own shelter, and you're able to do things the way you want to do it, I don't know. It's something that we all deserve, but something that seems very difficult to get. But it's not. Sometimes the smallest dangers are the biggest for humans, as with bacteria and viruses. And sometimes the smallest changes are the biggest for us as individuals. To just change our perspective for 1 minute and think, I'm going to follow what I want to do. And I guess making this video, I'm hoping that I can push myself a little harder to work for the things that I want. And it's difficult because it's easy to lose faith with so much bullshit going on around us. But I'm going camping, and probably today or tomorrow. I'm going to go up to the woods with my family. I'll make a couple videos up there. I'm just going to kind of regain my thoughts about life, and a new perspective hopefully will emerge. I'll let you know what I find.